Hey now, welcome back to the Highway with Kyle Shutt. Little known fact, I love New York City. And this week on the program, we have Dave Castillo, who is the co-owner and mastermind behind the St. Vitus bar, one of my favorite places to get a beverage in Brooklyn. He also does this industrial dance nightmare project called Confines, and we're going to play a track from his new EP coming up later. God, I love New York. As always, if you like what you've been hearing on the program, click a couple buttons, hit a couple tabs, maybe even save a thing or two, and you do what you got to do to make sure you don't miss a single episode. And if you want to go one step further and help me keep these lights on, you can find us at patreon.com/thehighway. For just a couple bucks a month, you can get yourself a shout out on the program. You can get some guitar lessons from me, help me keep a 6-pack of beer in the fridge at all times. Priorities, baby. Priorities. And if for whatever reason I haven't gotten to your shout out yet, go ahead and send me a message. I'm an open book, and I also smokes a bit, so sometimes the names slip through the cracks. But I appreciate every single one of you for listening, and I also really appreciate our sponsors, Heil Sound, because if you like the way I sound, it's because there's a Heil in front of me. Now I wish I could go have a beer at St. Vitus bar every single day, but I'm back in Texas, and it's far, far away in Brooklyn. But I've got the owner on the phone, so that's the next best thing. Let's do things my way.
The Highway.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing
What's
good.
Going on?
Not a whole lot. Dave Castillo, everybody. New York City legend.
Sorta.
Well, yeah, man, dude, fucking how you been doing? It's been a real pandemic, huh?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's kind of crazy because the bar's been open. I've been playing shows as Confines again, and it all has sort of happened as recently as September 10th. So.
Man.
It was kind of like this jarring, like 0 to 100 kind of vibe, because, we've come back strong with that. And then, I'm releasing a record, and I played a great show with King Woman, and I got a record release show coming up, and it's like, oh.
Their new record is awesome, by the way. The new King Woman is brutal.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. She's wonderful. So, great friend, Christina. And a marvelous record, like so good. So it was a real, treat to be able to open for her and for her to play 3 nights at Vitus. I mean, she did insane. 3 nights and sold them all out. Yeah, it was awesome. So all that is really cool, man. And so it's nice to get back to doing what I do best, what we do best as St. Vitus and all that. So it's good. I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, that's great to hear, man. And for everyone that doesn't know, Dave is the co-owner of one of my favorite bars up in Greenpoint, St. Vitus Bar, and it's just I can't believe it's been around that long now. It's wild, and to me, it still seems like a new bar. But and also, your industrial outfit Confines has a new EP coming out December 3rd? December 3rd, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. December 3rd.
Yeah, and it's fucking awesome. I checked it out. Curran sent it to me. Shout out to Curran Reynolds. Fucking one of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering exactly when your bar opened. I know you probably can't talk about illegal activity, but a lot of bars here in Austin, I'm not naming names, but just turned into straight up speakeasies during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And that was my therapy. My self-help was going to some bars where, we were all, it was like a very small group of people that knew about, where we were going, what we were doing. We didn't do anything irresponsible, it kept our distance and everything like that, but we just needed a place to go drink a damn beer.
Yeah. I mean, in New York, there was a lot of that going on, especially outdoors. So like the city kind of let like establishments sort of create these outdoor areas that would, never be possible before, pretty much.
Totally.
And so it was definitely like a bit more vibrant like that. And I also split my time between Brooklyn and the Jersey Shore. So down here at the shore, there it was, the outdoors is kind of like the draw, right?
Yeah.
So they had like a lot of ability to do that kind of stuff down here. And they actually shut down one of the main streets down here just to make it like more pedestrian and like open air, which was interesting. So there was kind of like a lot of that. So like if you wanted to after the first sort of initial, like, bigger sort of lockdown where everybody was, freaked out and still not quite knowing what we were dealing with, I think, it kind of evolved a little bit. And so that was definitely some solace. For Vitus, we just kept it closed, the whole time, so September 10th of this year was the first time that we were open in almost, 18 months of any sort. There was no like half-mast, you know what I mean? It was just like,
did you have
it's either kind of all or nothing kind of thing.
Like, did you have like rent forgiveness or anything like that? Or were you just like hemorrhaging cash the whole time?
Well, that was very interesting. So, without getting like too specifics into our financials, we basically, the first thing that happened, which is like pretty much the most miraculous sort of thing, was that we did this Kickstarter campaign, and that raised a lot of money.
I know them well.
Like a lot.
There's no heart attack like starting a Kickstarter, man.
Yeah, it blew us away. It was just awesome. Totally insane. And with that was what really let us sort of survive for being closed for like 18 months, and then
you have to get creative. Totally.
Yeah, and then there was federal help, but it took a really long time to get to us, Then we were able to kind of like rehire people, put like new money into the bar that was sorely needed, that we were kind of planning to do. When you have a place, you've been open for 10 years, man, things don't last forever. So we had to like, reinvest into it as well. And that was, part of what we were going to be doing. And so we're very lucky. We're very lucky that people respond to us and what we do, and that they were willing to want us to continue being part of their lives. That's the way that I see it, and that was like a really fucking beautiful thing. So now here we are, and, people are coming. It's great. And, we hope that we can, continue to move past the pandemic as it continually like evolves. But it's nice to see that we can provide what we provide to people, which is, I think, largely a little bit of escape from everyday life,
Totally.
And to kind of have that like bit of release, like you were saying, have a beer, watch a show, let music kind of, do what it does for you. And then all the problems will still be there when when you wake up the next day.
It's one of my favorite bars in Brooklyn, and the first time I went there, I can't remember exactly when it was. It was a while back, but I walked in, and they're just blasting the Sword, and and I walk up to the bar, and I'm a terminal smartass. I can't help myself sometimes, and the bartender, it might have been you, I don't know who it was, but came up to me and was like, "Hey, can I get you something to drink?" And I just said, "Hey, if your band is playing when you come in the bar, do you get to drink for free?" And the bartender just rolled their eyes at me like I was the biggest asshole on the planet. And I was like, yeah, I'll take whatever I ordered, Yingling and a shot of Jameson. And I handed over my card to open a tab. And then about 2 minutes later, after they gave me my drinks, something hits me in the face. I was like, what the fuck? And I looked down, and it was my debit card. And the bartender's like, "Man, you really are in the Sword." He was like, "Drinks are on us tonight, man. Have a good time." And so that was the first time I ever went to Vitus, and it's had a special place in my heart ever since then. We always try to like.
That's brilliant. That sounds that would never be me. But it sounds like it sounds like it could be George. It sounds like it could be George. That really feels very George to me. But I will neither confirm nor deny that happened for myself. But I think George would throw something at you for sure.
That's hilarious. But yeah, we always wanted to play an after show there or something like that. It just never came together, especially like pre-pandemic days. New York was just a total madhouse. To play a show in one place and then get to another in any sort of timely fashion, it was just near impossible. But one of these days we're gonna come up in there and rock.
Kyle, we'll keep that offline. That's a between us conversation. But we'll be happy to have you guys whenever.
Hell yeah.
It's what we do, man. It's pretty incredible that anyone who is of a stature that's more than drawing, the couple hundred people that fit in there wants to play, it's just cool. Like I'm always kind of blown away at the things that happen, but now I'm always trying to kind of figure out ways to do cool stuff and sort of top myself a little bit and just make the place fucking cool, continue to make it fun.
You got to continue forward. I think it's an Outkast quote, Andre 3000. Didn't he say you're only as funky as your last cut? You got to keep on top of yourself. Man. And is there any band, any highlights from, the years that you're just like, you couldn't believe you like pulled that show off?
Oh yeah. Many times. I mean, Neurosis stands out,
how loud was that show?
Well, yeah, it's wild, man. And I just wasn't sure if we could pull it off from a technical perspective. Right. Like, there's a lot of people in that band, there's a lot going on, but shout out to, I forget homeboy's name, but their front of house is like a magician. Like he had them sounding incredible. I think his name is Dave. I'm not exactly sure as well, but he was phenomenal. And they sounded incredible in there. Anthrax, that's one that I'm just like, dude, now we're getting into like, crazy territory. The Nirvana thing, of course. Right. There's been a lot, like of all different stripes, even just getting stuff like Portal, they're from Australia.
Yeah. Like
who knows when they would ever kind of be around or whatever, so it can be memorable for a variety of factors. When you do a show or play a show or whatever, sometimes it's the circumstances. Like we had Zola Jesus play. She finished her show outside in the snow. Like whoa. A lot of crazy shit has happened, so it's, a lot of different things kind of go into making something magic, how the crowd reacts, the circumstance of the day. That's why live music's fun, because there's unpredictability to it. Mm-hmm. There's the human element, which can make it either, it might not be great, but it might be great. You have to, be there to find out and to experience and maybe also be a part of it too, mm-hmm. To create that. I feel like there's a lot of things that, the audience brings and like the, as a concert goer, a show goer, you can bring so much to the whole thing. How many times have you seen, whether it be, at a hardcore show, a dance club, whatever, when 2 or 3 people start dancing, right? Uh-huh. Like it could just ignite a room, yes, because they're the firsts, to kind of get into it. And then it kind of gives permission for everybody else to be like, all right, we're in, it's great. Like I love that feeling. I've seen it, when I've been a lead singer in Primitive Weapons and White Widows and in more of the metal context, and I've seen it in Confines where it's just like, okay, this little group of people here is dancing. And maybe by the end of the set, we got like 30, 40, 50, the room going, uh-huh. And that's so much fun to me, so everyone can play a part, man, that's kind of the key to it, I think. So totally. It's pretty amazing.
I saw that with Kanga at the Psycho Vegas this year, where she's on after like Creeping Death and all. It's just like basically a black metal festival, and she goes on and turned the whole House of Blues into a dance party. It was fucking incredible, man. I love her. We just did a show recently, with right? Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. I think her productions are really awesome. Really cool person. And I think she brings an interesting perspective to that game as well. Just the way that she kind of incorporates melody and hooks and her kind of construction of song is really, it's fun. It's mm-hmm. and it's cool. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of hers, and shout out to Kanga. She's wonderful, but like, that's totally right. And it's interesting to sort of see how these things can kind of blend together a little bit, like, my whole life, as far as like musically, it's like I grew up on Long Island, and that's an hour away from New York City, like where I particularly grew up. Uh-huh. So that was kind of the move, right? Like as I got a little bit older too, and I could kind of get into places or sneak my way into places, it's like shows are over by like 10:30 or 11. What the fuck else are you gonna do? Uh-huh. So it's like, let's go out to like clubs and like dance and like listen to, try and find some party that kind of had the right kind of bent to it with the right kind of people that are kind of like into, might also be into punk and into metal and to other things as well. But it's like the party's playing Bauhaus or Gang of Four or like other things that are interesting, New Order, whatever, And that was definitely really prevalent when I was growing up and going out and stuff. And it really like shaped pretty much a lot of who I am. And if you look at the programming at Vitus, we're following in the footsteps of a lot of like amazing places that came before us, So that's kind of like what we do, and it informs the music I make. I kind of, I made a lot of, heavy metal music and hardcore music and things in that sandbox for a while. And I guess my music now is more of like an after 11 o'clock endeavor.
I love it, man. It's super abrasive. It's I've always been a fan of industrial music. I'm sure just like most people in the 90s, like Nine Inch Nails and Ministry were kind of like that intro to that kind of stuff. But even digging back and like going into like the early Ministry records, even like that like super dance pop stuff and everything, I've always loved that just as much as I have Nirvana or whatever, like punk music or anything like that. And it's very difficult to create though. Every time I sit down and I try to do it, it's almost like I can never get abrasive enough, you know what I mean? Like what how do you go about creating like your beats and stuff? Because I talked to Martin Atkins recently from Pigface, and I was kind of I sort of touched on that, but he was like, no, I don't program anything, I just play the shit out of the drums and I just loop it. And that kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh shit, man, okay. He approached industrial more like in a full band way. But like how do you go about creating your beats and loops and just getting those like nasty fucking noises?
Yeah, so Martin obviously has a lot of skills. Like I come at it in a very, I guess. So I had never before Confines, I'd never written like a song musically. I'd always been like a singer, right? But I DJ'd in clubs a lot over the years. So as DJing and kind of being a part of nightlife, I always kind of felt like I kind of knew what people moved, what kind of tempos I really liked, what made me feel like this is going to be like dance floor music, right? And I had like my ideas about it, so I feel like I had a point of view going in. What I love about industrial music in general is that it does have like an abrasiveness, but the good stuff kind of, to me, kind of cuts through and creates uses that in a dance floor context where you kind of are like, man, like this has like this heaviness, but then it just kind of rocks me in a different way. And I kind of don't know what, like, I want to dance, but I want to dance hard. It's like, if you listen to a sick hip hop beat in a car and it just knocks and you're just like, fuck, dude. And like, you can't help but like bob your head. Felt like industrial did that for me by bringing the right elements of like, post-punk metal music and kind of like other danceable qualities together. So to answer your question, when I first got into it, I was just kind of like, all right, I have this point of view and I want to try and see if I can make it. And one of the things that inspired me were people like the OGs, right? The Einstein Neubautens of the world, the Al Jorgensens of the world. They would sample a lot of their own stuff. So my father is a mechanical engineer. Shout out to Julio Castillo, my dad. He is a mechanical engineer and he has a full shop in the house that I grew up in on Long Island. So I went there and I created samples out of like my dad's machines.
That's
so
awesome.
Like all this crazy, I was like, all right, Dad, turn on the machine now. And I'm like, oh, perfect. And like, it's like an 80-year-old Colombian guy was like, okay, papi. Like,
I love that.
But I'm like, look, I'm going to turn this into music. He's like, okay, papi. Like, all right. So I feel like my first step was kind of like, I had this vision of bringing, like kind of that old school flavor into it, where I'm really trying to stay out of the box a little bit in terms of like computers and stuff. I'm like just using samplers, and doing that, I kind of started creating a little bit of my own palette a little bit. And I wanted to have like some flavor. Like Martin's a great drummer, right? So he can add that kind of humanity, that sort of organic randomness into like his productions as well. That's kind of the way that I went about like starting to achieve it. And then I started like attempting, and still am attempting, to play keys a little bit, doing all of that sort of stuff.
That's awesome that you went and recorded all that stuff. Whenever I did my my Doom Side of the Moon project, which was like a heavy metal sort of Pink Floyd reimagining, we were doing it in this studio that was right next to an old metal shop. And I was after a little bit, I was like, yeah, because Pink Floyd, like, they were just as famous for like using noise and just soundscapes as they were like writing songs and stuff. And I just, for whatever reason, I was like, man, do you think he would let us go in there and record all that shit? Just because he would be in there all day, just like, you know. So yeah, like a lot of like the first tracks and all that stuff is all like the metal shop next door. I just layered all like the machine sounds that we recorded all over each other, and that was about as close as I got to doing something like that. That's hilarious that you did that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what it is. You know, I mean, like when you think about it, you know, and then like, you know, obviously Al Jorgensen, you know, like the godfather kind of the whole thing, and like his sort of progression. And I'm like a big like Twitch fan, particularly out of a lot of Ministry. And I just love the way, you know, he's Cuban. It's kind of clear that he has like, you know, that kind of bent to some of his percussion and things of that nature. And I was just very influenced by that sort of record and how he kind of brought in a lot of that stuff. And and even like Code Era, like Cabaret Voltaire and stuff of that nature, like really kind of got me going. So I wanted to kind of bring that in, but I'm also really into like a lot of just kind of like the more industrial techno that's sort of happening, you know, Orphix and Sound Servant, Vatican Shadow, JK Flesh, which is Justin Broderick's project, you know. So I kind of wanted to see what I can do as far as blending those things sort of together and seeing where my take of it could be, you know. And I'm Colombian, so I just like, I respond to those rhythms sort of like almost like innately. I'm just like, yeah, I like, this is what makes me move. So it was just pretty much like this process of me continually trying to find out what made it feel visceral to me. And then I, you know, for this latest EP, I started singing again, which was different because I kind of thought I had left that in the band realm a little bit. But then I was like, fuck that. You should just go for it. You know, like I started kind of humming stuff to myself or whatever. And I was like, dude, the only thing you really know how to do is kind of do this. So like, maybe you should use it, you know? So it just took that evolution over time.
It's funny that the most industrial music, when you like, I don't know, like when most people think about it, it's just like, you know, that people are dressed up all, you know, like it's fucking Halloween every day. And like, it is kind of has this abrasive nature that's hard to listen to and everything. But underneath it all, it's, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but it's just disco, you know, it's just disco for like us, you know, punk fuck ups that like just want to dance. And like, it's underneath most of it. It's just super funky. And it's, I love it. Even like, you know, songs like Thieves by Ministry or anything by KMFDM or whatever, like Juke Joint Jezebel and all that. It's just like, it's real just dance pop, and just like going to an industrial show and just seeing everybody dancing. It's just like, there's nothing evil at all about this. This is just amazing.
Yeah, I think that's sort of, I think you're totally right. Like that's sort of the trick a little bit too, right? Like if you think about, you know, like what was happening at the time, right? Like technologically speaking, right? Like 808s, 909s, you know, those machines, right? It's like, these are the tools of the time, right? And so what were developed out of those things, techno, hip hop, house music, industrial, right? There wasn't like this kind of like infinite buffet of sounds like there is today too, right? So it's really a lot of different perspectives on the same tool, you know, like kind of moving forward. So like, it's not like you can get things that are so far away from it. It's just different communities and aesthetics sort of applying the tool to these like kind of different points of view. And I think that that's really interesting. And a lot of those points of view, I mean, right, like hip hop, you could dance to it. Techno house, you could dance to it. Same thing with industrial. It just kind of had a little bit more of, you know, the community came out of, you know, Wax Track, Chicago, punk, right? Like it just kind of, at least the American side of it kind of developed out of that. And it's just very interesting. So to me, it's just kind of like, again, like a point of view, right? On that sort of thing. You could look at a guitar the same way, right? Yeah. I mean, the possibilities, as you well know, are are like kind of limitless as far as like what you want to achieve. So that's what it kind of was for me. And I just wanted to kind of sort of put into play the songs I would want to hear at like 1 a.m. New York City, 3 a.m. Berlin. Like I think about stuff like as if I'm going to DJ them. Like, would I want to listen to this at 1 a.m. in New York?
That's awesome. Do you approach it as a DJ live, or have you thought about fleshing the whole thing out, or like what are your opinions on full on industrial bands? Like, you see a band like Ministry with a real drummer and things like, or Nine Inch Nails or anything like that. Not that they're necessarily like your average industrial group, but but I've also seen bands like Youth Code and things like that. They're just like, it's just a laptop, a couple samplers, and singers. But it's funny to me because I love the energy of a full band and everything like that. But sometimes it can take away from the industrial like dance club aspect. Like, what do you think about that? And like, how do you perform?
Yeah, I think that's totally. I mean, that's what's kind of interesting about this, because it's kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of scenario, right? And like, yeah, and to me, it's just about the performance and how cool it is. Like I've seen, Kanga, she's on her own and she was awesome. Each time I've seen Youth Code, I mean, devastating show, like so good live, right? And then, I've seen Skinny Puppy and they have a drummer, and then Ogre, and then Kevin Key playing a bunch of synths, but they run some tracks. It seems like, I'm not like totally under the hood there, but to me, it's just what's going to make it awesome, like it doesn't really matter, and that's kind of the funny thing. It kind of goes back to the Aphex Twin thing, where he would like, fall asleep on the couch in front of everyone and just play the track, we could go any which way, and in a lot of ways it could kind of free you up. But for me specifically, I literally take two samplers, two Electron Digitacs, which aren't really meant to like play back music in a lot of ways. Like there's no song mode to them. There's nothing to it. And I pretty much live remix my songs kind of on the fly every time I play.
That's awesome.
So there is like both of them
and stuff like that in there.
Yeah. So right now I'm kind of trying to, I'm in like a growth stage with it, because it's something I'm trying to really figure out, because there's now more singing, like there's singing and there's like more like parts, Before I used to just be like, let's fucking jam, right?
Yeah.
So I run both of them through a Pioneer DJM 900, like a DJ mixer of that kind, right? But it's like before I didn't have to worry about singing, so like my hands could be totally occupied and I'm just kind of like in the fucking zone. But now I need to kind of balance a little bit of the jamming and then kind of maybe the memorable part moment, so that's something that's like evolving. I've been looking at some new pieces of gear and stuff like that. I'm trying to kind of keep it myself for the time being, because I can easily control myself sometimes. But that's pretty much how I play. And there's like a variance to it that's also kind of scary, because I'm kind of like, okay, I know all this fits together, but I can put it together kind of any which way I want, So I kind of got to get into a zone a little bit. And at first it could be like, oh man, I'm a little in my head. But as soon as I kind of I can get like a little runner's high with it. And then I'm just not thinking. And then it all starts working, and I have to really like pay attention to the clock. It's one of those because all of a sudden I'm like 40 minutes went by. I'm like, holy shit.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean, because like I was just talking with this about I was talking about this with Bill from Carcass, about like how it just you just need to turn your brain off. Like whenever we're on stage playing guitar and stuff like that, I'm really not thinking about anything. Like, I'm not thinking about the song I'm playing. I'm just having an awesome time, like just with the crowd, like interacting with the crowd, like just like jamming with my band, things like that. But I would be so nervous. I don't know if I would be able to turn my brain off when I'm like dealing with samplers and like stuff like that.
Well, the thing is, it's a really different experience, man, because it's so less physical, right? Like in a certain way, like, I actually think that, it's interesting. So like what you were saying, like, being in the moment, being with the band, like the worst shows you've ever played is when you're in your own head, when you kind of have a monologue in your head.
Yeah.
It's done. It's bad. Like we've all been there, right? Like, it's like, oh fuck, man, like this guy and whatever and that thing. And you're just like not in the moment. When you're not in the moment, it's like you've already lost, I think. But when I was playing, I'm like running around and screaming my face off, and it's so physical, you know, like it was like, you know, some like Rollins shit, like some like I got to be in shape in order to like deliver the performance.
Totally.
Mentally, I was really clear kind of afterwards, but I was so I was like a mess, you know. I looked like I just went to the gym, you know, like I was like drenched in sweat, all that kind of stuff.
That's how you know you
With
did it
this,
right.
it's kind of, yeah, totally, exactly. With this, it's kind of different because I'm like totally normal afterwards, except that like my brain is sort of exhausted. It like kind of hits like a different zone, you know, where I'm just kind of like mentally like super stimulated in like a different way, where I'm like really into what I'm sort of doing. And then I like will look up and I'll like see the crowd, get that feedback, and then kind of continue along my path, you know. But like it's a little less like showmany. And then I've started bringing a little bit of that into it now that I've started singing more, which is finding a balance. But it's like really like a mental high that's like really kind of different, you know. It's like a new trip. So it was really a lot to kind of get used to, but it's like super rewarding because you just look up and you maybe in your machines tweaking stuff, just listening, and you look up and all of a sudden, like, you know, 100 people are like dancing. You're like, oh, okay. Like that real-time feedback. You're like, sweet. And that's what I've known how to do because of DJing for a long time. That is fun to me, you know? So keeping that open-ended, that jamming kind of perspective is cool, and it keeps it fresh, right? Like when you guys do that in the Sword, you're like, you know, playing a 45-day tour, you know, you open yourself to new experiences each night, and for the fans too, you know, it's great.
And crowds are different all over the world. I mean, are you trying to take Confines out on the road like hardcore style? Like I just really like just book a whole world tour?
Well, I basically, so yeah, I would like to do as much as I can, right? As a human being, obviously I have Vitus, which we just spoke about,
right.
And that's like, it's like being in a band, but just always staying in one place. I'm like Billy Joel with the residency at MSG. It's like every fucking day, you know, but at the same time, it's beautiful. I love what I do, you know, it's great. And so that's basically going to take its time, but I do want to go and get out there with Confines as well. And I've just signed up with a booking agent. Shout out to Ethan from Heavy Talent.
Awesome.
And I'm looking to definitely do that sort of stuff. And, you know, as I've gotten also older, I'm like in my later 30s now, and playing, like I can organize this really well on my own, you know, to kind of still be able to kind of create art and kind of balance the other aspects of my life pretty much, you know? So,
totally. And when you have the bar like that, you're married to it. I mean, if you leave it in somebody else's hands, like all of a sudden, like decisions get made when you're not there. And I could definitely see that causing some apprehension.
Yeah. We're lucky that over the years, we just have developed such an amazing team. And I got like amazing business partners too, that both have played music, you know, over the years more than I even have. And it's sort of something that's sort of allowed, you know what I mean? And we hire a lot of people who are of our, you know, various music scenes that kind of come through here. So, you know, it's part of it that I've gone away at different times, but it has to be like a pretty structured thing. And as it's gotten more successful, it has to, you know, we have to kind of keep our, you know, cross our T's and dot our I's here, you know? So there's that. And then there's like family, you know, it's like, you know, my girl, we got, you know, my you know, my whole family is still like right around here, my parents, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, there's always things to sort of just take care of and be around and cultivate here as well, you know? And I wanted to continue making art, but a lot on my own terms that could, you know, kind of have that balance in mind. So with this sort of project, I mean, shit, man, I could hop on a plane, play a couple of shows, be back, no problem, you know, wherever. I'm down. And like, I just have to really,
I'm so jealous.
Really just, just got to kind of clear it with the other things I have to do. So it's pretty awesome in that regard.
Yeah, but I've been on tours where like it's like fly-in tours where like the Metal Fest, like all the bands are flying with all their fucking gear, these mountains of guitars and pedal boards and all this kind of shit, and then we'll be like at the airport at the same time as like the EDM festival that's going, and it's just a bunch of dudes with backpacks, and their guarantees are massive. I'm just like, God damn it, we I don't know, we
yeah,
we might have picked the wrong
really
genre.
fun.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it just happenstance this way, you know. It's kind of funny when you look into kind of that sort of aspect of it. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of places in the world with like guitars and stuff. There's not a lot of places that have an Electron Digitact just hanging around. I'm constantly living in fear of what happens if my gear fucks up, like because I don't really like. I use, more hardware and stuff. So it's almost like nuclear. It's like very tricky. So I'm also thinking about that kind of stuff as I evolve when I play live. So far, I haven't had to do too much in a row, et cetera, you know? So it's definitely like a concern as I'm like developing shows like in the future too, you know? I'm like, I've thought about that. I'm like, damn, like, I should probably keep some shit in the cloud. Like, I don't know, you know?
I'm real good friends with Blake from Pig Destroyer, the guy that runs all the samples for them. And I've definitely seen him. I think the last time I saw them was at the Music Hall of Williamsburg. And, that's like the most chaotic band you've ever seen live, and their crowd is equally as chaotic. And then just one time this dude got on stage to do a stage dive and knocked over Blake's entire table of samplers and everything. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, what? Yeah. How do you even repair any of that or like fix it on the road or anything? I mean, that's just a whole different thing. It's like if my amp explodes, I can like put some new tubes in it and recalibrate it, no problem. But like if your sampler fries, and like how do you get a new one? What if that memory card got compromised? Oh my God, I never even really thought about like how stressful that could be.
Like, dude. Like, it's like those memes of like people like 3 a.m. like what keeps them up at night and stuff. That's one of them for me. In fact, one time when I was in London and I played in London, this cool Halloween party at the Black Heart. Shout out to the Black Heart.
Love the Black Heart.
Yeah, what a place, right? Fuck, man, I love that place. But so I was just like playing, and like there was like a little issue, British power conversion,
Oh God.
And one of my samplers didn't turn on randomly. And it didn't turn on for like an hour until I figured it out. That hour was a rough hour. That's like chopping your right arm off. Like if you could only play with your left or something. It was like absolutely insane. So I learned a hard lesson that day, but it was only one show. And luckily it all ended up panning out and I figured it out. But you
gotta bring that 220 converter, man. You got
yeah, dude, I don't know, man. And I'm not great on the details, so we'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, I'm a lucky dude. I get to be around music and play music and do things kind of on a great level. Whether it's running the biz or doing Confines. So yeah, I'm blessed, man. I love it.
Is there still is there a band that's like your ultimate dream band to get into Vitus that you haven't booked yet?
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna make an official proclamation here.
Let's do it right now.
I've had Napalm Death booked twice, and it fell through once because of the pandemic. Napalm Death is right now my current white whale. They're the one that has gotten away multiple times.
This is doable.
It's doable. It's totally doable. Like, it's just one of those things that for 10 years has eluded me.
Barney, Mike, if you're listening, go to Brooklyn.
I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. You know what I mean? A little harmony corruption for the fucking boys. Let's fucking hang out. It would be lovely. But yeah, that's a band that obviously one of the greatest bands in extreme metal that's ever existed, and it's just been something that's just like, ooh, and for whatever reason, not unlike the Sword, Kyle, not unlike the Sword, but we won't go too close to home.
Sword.
The diplomatic answer is Napalm Death.
420 St. Vitus bar. It's happening.
I'm just saying, like, come by for like a week. We'll make it worth it.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the program, man. I really appreciate it. I love Vitus Bar. The Confines new record, or it's a EP, comes out December 3rd. And I always ask my musical guests if they want to play a track off of it. Is there anything that you'd like to drop on here? Do a little world debut?
Oh, yeah, sure, man. I would say the track Oro y Muerte, which means gold and death in Spanish. That would be the track.
Well, we're going to do that right now. Again, Dave, thank you so much for all you've done for the New York scene over the years. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where Confines takes you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, for having me and, talking about all this stuff and, walk into St. Vitus anytime and it'll be a projectile-free experience.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Awesome. Take care, Kyle.
Take it easy, buddy. Thanks so much for tuning into The Highway this week. A big shout out to Reverend Guitars, Railhammer Pickups, and Earthquaker Devices. If you liked what you heard, you can follow where you can follow, subscribe where you can subscribe, and if you want to go one step further, you can support us on Patreon at The Highway with Kyle Shutt. For a few bucks a month, you can help us keep this party going, get early access to next week's episode, and even get yourself a shout out.